everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video, buy low, sell high wingers for the rest of the fantasy hockey season, is always presented by FanDuel Canada, North America's #1 sportsbook. That link is in the description below to download. Definitely a little bit tougher with wingers because they're more of a hot commodity in fantasy hockey. Certainly hard to find some guys that you're going to sell high on because there's really only, like, the good ones are the good ones and they're in good, solid positions to succeed. So it's hard to really convince anybody to either trade them to your team or to trade them away. So definitely some good buy low spots. The sell high guys are definitely more viable for people in the 14 to 16 fantasy hockey team league. So let's get into today's video. All right, so the first guy we're going to be buying low on is Matt Boldy on the Minnesota Wild. Currently 18 goals through 53 games this season. Similar reasons as to why we're going to be buying low on Matt Boldy as to why we bought low on Joel Eriksson in the Centers edition of the Buy Low Sell High. If you haven't seen that video, check that out in the channel as well. His last 7 games, he's gone goalless, just 4 points through those 7 games as well. 3 of those were in 1 game as well against the Blackhawks. So tough sledding here for Matt Boldy, but this is where we buy low. This is where we buy low because Kaprizov out for some time now, so this will definitely benefit Boldy. And as I compared with Joel Eriksson, when Kirill Kaprizov has been out over the past 2 seasons, or even earlier this year, Matt Boldy has been terrific and very solid. Someone that the Wild can generally rely on to score goals and put up points. Prior to the 4-game pointless streak, he went without Kaprizov. Boldy had 7 points in his last 6 games, without the Wild superstar, including 3 multi-point games. So I think this is more what you can expect from Matt Boldy. It's not like they don't have any other forwards on this Wild team other than Kaprizov. Like, you still have Marco Rossi, Matt Zuccarello, Ryan Hartman obviously got suspended for a decent time there, 10 games. But still, there's a lot of avenues for this Wild team to continue to score like they were at the beginning of the season. It'll be a little bit more difficult, obviously, without Kaprizov, but Matt Boldy is certainly a guy that you can rely on. I think he can have a huge second half if the Wild want to continue to, battle for a playoff spot, currently in a playoff spot right now. So we'll see how the goaltending goes, but offensively, I feel like Matt Boldy will definitely give them a helping hand along with Joel Eriksson. All right, the first guy we're going to sell high on is Jonathan Huberdeau on the Calgary Flames. 20-goal season for Huberdeau, the first time he's eclipsed that mark with the Calgary Flames since he's been with the Florida Panthers. A 21% shooting percentage for Huberdeau is much higher than we've seen from Huberdeau since with the Calgary Flames as well, especially considering the Flames' 5-on-5 offense and power play for that matter is rated below league average. I just can't see seeing him continue to score at this rate, especially considering he's not even one of the more skilled or talented forwards in terms of scoring. Actually, he does a lot of other things well, but scoring, we've seen that with the Flames. It's just not been his forte on this team. He is also one of 4 players with no more than 20 goals, but more than 15 goals with a shooting percentage above 20% this season. Most of these players who are in that same category just don't have consistent roles in the lineup, and they move all the way up and down the lineup as well. You see names like Huberdeau, Matthew Nyes, Adam Gaudette, guys like that. I mentioned that he hasn't obviously eclipsed the 20-goal mark with the Calgary Flames since being with the team, something he consistently did with a member of the Panthers, but I think his game and just everything has kind of changed since he's been with Calgary, and that's been relatively evident. Does Daryl Sutter have a hand in ruining Jonathan Huberdeau? You could potentially say that, but I think this is kind of the norm that we're going to see from Huberdeau for the rest of the season. I know he won't really, and I mentioned this in the intro, I know he won't really be a sell-high candidate in those shallow leagues, but I certainly think he can be traded in anything in a 14-man league and up. He has 8 points since January 1st, but only 4 goals, so it's time to move on from Jonathan Huberdeau. Jonathan Marchessault is the next guy we're going to be buying low on in the video. 51 games played, he has 15 goals, just 1 goal in the month of January for Marchessault. He did score just the other night against Ottawa on the power play. Very uncharacteristic from a guy we saw score 42 goals last season. Now, that was in Vegas, and this Nashville team that they try to create in the offseason has certainly not gone the way that Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette thought it was going to go. But he's gone 4 games without a point before last night. He had a ton of assists in the month of January, 11, but I think we're going to see his goal scoring ability kind of increase here for the next 2 or 3 months of the regular season. The Predators certainly aren't making the playoffs at this point, so I think it's time to buy low. The Preds also have the 3rd easiest remaining schedule, so a lot of opportunities to play those shitty Western Conference teams where you'll get a lot of power play opportunities and a lot of good scoring chances at 5-on-5, and Marchessault going to continue to play in the top 6 and be one of the elite forwards on this Predators team as well, so I think it's a great time to buy low. We also don't know if Marchessault or Stamkos is going to get traded, since neither of them have really have actually worked out with this Predators team. So that is potentially an option at this point. But I mean, time will tell, considering Trotz at the beginning of the year, when they went through that first kind of skid, mentioned like, if we don't start playing well, we're going to start trading guys and we're going to start kind of like a mini rebuild. And I think you kind of already starting to see that happen maybe a little bit here with some of the younger guys who are getting a little bit more playing time. So Marchessault, definitely a guy I'm going to be buying low on, even if he gets traded, even if he stays on Nashville. All right, another guy to sell high on, Jared McCann on the Seattle Kraken. 54 games played, 14 goals. Definitely a disappointing year for Jared McCann and a little bit of the Seattle team as well. His last 15 games played, like his points are up there, 13 points, but 12 of those are assists. Really low shooting percentage his last 15 games played. So you'd think like, oh, maybe, he's a pretty talented scorer. He's due for some positive regression. He has 20 shots over those 15 games played. So like he's barely averaging a shot a game at this point. And honestly, if you can't trade him, I would just drop him. I think there's much better options on your waiver wire. In the 12-man league than I play him, he's been on and off the waiver wire all year since the beginning of the season. He's not on the first power play anymore. The first line is the talk of the town in Seattle now since Capo Caco's kind of got traded there and has been playing much better. Seattle also has the fourth hardest remaining schedule, considering they still have to play a lot of the juggernauts in the West and have already played a lot of their games against some of the bottom feeders in the Western Conference as well, like teams like the Ducks and Sharks. So I think this is definitely the time to sell high on Jared McCann, especially considering his points production over the last 15 games. The last guy we're buying low on, Kent Johnson on the Columbus Blue Jackets. With Kirill Marchenko now sidelined for what seems about 6 to 8 weeks is the timetable for a broken jaw. It seems like Kent Johnson or Cole Sillinger will get the bump in terms of like fantasy hockey relevance. When the injury first got announced, it seemed like Kent Johnson would take that first line spot with Fantilli and Voronkov. That's what happened when Marchenko got hurt against Dallas. He was playing on that top line, but we've seen recently that Sillinger will be playing on that top line and Kent Johnson will stay on that second line with JVR. And I'd imagine it's because Dean Evison sees that duo playing pretty well together. Like Kent Johnson's been putting up some decent points recently. So I think he probably just wants to keep the chemistry solidified there and then try Sillinger up there. And I'm sure Kent Johnson will get some time on the first line and play first line minutes as well. He's on that first power play. He kind of rotates now with Sillinger on the point and even like the half wall as well. So definitely a lot of scoring opportunities opening for Kent Johnson. And I know a lot of people will see this and be like, well, he's not even rostered in my league. I would pick him up. Like anybody who's playing on that first line for Columbus, it doesn't even matter who at this point, just produces points. And I know you're missing some key components at this point with Monahan and Marchenko out, but they've found ways to produce at a really high rate. Like Adam Fantilli is still an awesome player. Voronkov is an awesome player. So Kent Johnson getting the opportunity to play with those guys, I think will boost him up already. And like he's already had impressive numbers this year, 34 points in 39 games. I think we see an ice time increase, and I think he's just going to be put in a lot more offensive situations to score more, which will in turn help your fantasy hockey team. And the last guy we're selling high on, Aliaksei Protas on the Washington Capitals. Protas definitely having a breakout season with 21 goals. And he's honestly a very solid player, but he's really taken advantage of the opportunities that he's gotten this year. Anytime he's been, or at the beginning of the season when he got put into that top six, he never got taken out because he continued to produce at a very solid rate. But he is a huge beneficiary of the team, of the players that he's playing with. Like when he was producing at his best rate, he was playing with Strome and Ovechkin. Now he's playing with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Connor McMichael on the second line, which is also a very good line, but he hasn't put up the same numbers, I would say, that we saw when he was playing with that other line. And I can't imagine them getting any better with him continuing to play on that second line. He doesn't really contribute anything else other fantasy hockey-wise, other than his like inconceivable scoring at the time for this season. And like I said, I don't see that continuing to happen. Like if he finishes with more than 30 goals, like honestly, I'll be surprised. That's 9 goals for the rest of the season at this point, with like 30 games left. I think he will obviously surpass his season high shot total of 113 shots with 93 shots already so far this year, but he's still not even averaging 2 shots a game with 93 and 52 in 52 games played. I'd honestly go after one of the Columbus guys for Protas, just considering like the roles are literally switching, like the balances are kind of switching for those kind of players, Kent Johnson, Sillinger, and Protas as well. So I try to get rid of Protas at this point. I feel like his high value has kind of peaked at this point, and I don't think we're going to see it get back to what we saw at the beginning of the season. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of buy low, sell high wingers for the rest of the fantasy hockey season. Shout out to FanDuel Canada for sponsoring the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.